get into the GOP debate recap here. So that debate last night was honestly painful to watch. I thought it was amateur at best. I felt like the moderators really did not do their job and step in when they should have. And we're going to go through a couple of highlights here. Now, I want to go ahead and start with this clip here coming from MSNBC, where it says candidates struggle to rise from the pack during the second GOP debate. Let's dive in.
The second Republican presidential debate. I am Kristen Welker in Washington. For a second time, the Republican presidential frontrunner Donald Trump was not on the debate stage. And for a second time, one major question hung over the night: whether anyone could or would do something, anything, to change the trajectory of this race. With Mr. Trump dominating the contest in both the national polls and the early states, tonight's debate could very well have been the Republican field's last best chance to dent Trump's momentum. Well, with the debate wrapping up at the Ronald Reagan Library in Simi Valley, California, it appears Trump's grip on the race isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Yep. Even as we did see some standout moments from the stage and an overall strong performance by Senator Tim Scott. Still, overall, what we saw tonight was a stage full of candidates trying to aggressively.
Let's just move forward a little bit. Sorry, she talks for a little too long. We'll get to this piece right here. One thing I do want to say before we dive into these little snippets here, I felt like focusing on Donald Trump last night, instead of helping those candidates, it actually helped Donald Trump. I don't feel that talking about Donald Trump and why he's not there. We all know he's not there. We all knew he wasn't going to be there. I don't think that's actually going to help these candidates, increase in the polls. I think it's only going to help Donald Trump, because you are giving more attention to someone who is not physically there instead of focusing on yourself, your campaign, and what you're going to do. But let's go ahead and start with the first snippet here.
Scott and Vivek Ramaswamy, and devolves into a cacophony of candidates.
We think about the fact that Vivek just said we were all good people, and I appreciate that, because last debate he said we were all bought and paid for. And I thought about that for a little while and said, I can't imagine how you could say that knowing that you were just in business with the Chinese Communist Party and the same people that funded Hunter Biden millions of dollars was a partner of yours as well. It's not nonsense.
So look, here's what I want to respond. These are good people who are tainted by a broken system, and it's not the fault of anybody who's involved.
Some of us are tainted.
Excuse me. Thank you for speaking while I'm interrupting. While I'm speaking.
You said bought and paid for.
Here is where I feel like the moderators should have intervened, because that's what moderators are there for. They're there to make sure that the debate, for the most part, is somewhat civil. But more importantly, that you can actually hear the candidates that are speaking and people are not talking over each other. And I think this is why it was difficult for some people to watch.
If I may,
you can't be on both sides.
Gentlemen, you'll have your turn.
One of the challenges
we should have.
Please focus on the issues that matter. We know we did business in China. Everybody knows that.
If I may address,
focus on holding Joe Biden accountable. That's what we need to be focusing on.
I actually agree with Ron DeSantis, and I will say something.
Yes. I think you have more than time to explain your point.
Well, if I was interrupted by a lot of people here, and I want to be respectful, because I believe
you were respectful last debate,
but I do not believe in these. We're sitting here in the Reagan Library.
Yes, I wish you
did not. Honor of Ronald Reagan's library, if I may, from one admirer of Ronald Reagan to another. From one admirer of Reagan to another, we cannot see violence.
This is sloppy. This is absolutely sloppy. There's 3 moderators sitting there, and none of them jump in or say anything.
4 years ago,
this isn't productive.
I want to hear about that.
Let's have a policy debate.
What's going on?
Let us have a policy debate.
Just one of many moments that was hard to hear, notably the first big knock on the frontrunner Donald Trump, who's up by 43 points nationally in our latest NBC News poll, was not on his record or his mounting legal troubles or his increasingly controversial remarks on the trail, but on not showing up to tonight's debate.
And Donald Trump hides behind the walls of his golf clubs and won't show up here to answer questions like all the rest of us are up here to answer. He put $7 trillion on the debt. He should be in this room to answer those questions for the people you talk about who are suffering. You know,
again, bringing up Donald Trump just gives more attention to Donald Trump. That will actually help Donald Trump in the polls. Do they honestly believe that Trump's base is going to move away from him because he's not a part of the debate? Do they think his base is going to move away from him because they're criticizing the fact that Donald Trump is not present? No, his base is not. I'm going to show you a clip where his base was actually at. His base is not concerned about that. He has already been president before. So a lot of the people that are part of his base, they want him to bring back that same economy back to the United States. They don't really care if he's at this primary debate or not. Now, I think everybody should debate. And what was interesting to me is Joe Biden had the nerve to actually say on Twitter, yeah, Trump should be there, da, da, da. And he doesn't even want to debate his own primary challengers. So it's a mess. In comes DeSantis.
Who else is missing in action? Donald Trump is missing in action. He should be on this stage tonight. He owes it to you to defend his record where they added $7.8 trillion to the debt. That set the stage for the inflation that we have.
Donald Trump should be here to answer for that, but he's not. And I want to look at that camera right now and tell you, Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching, okay? And you're not here tonight, not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on the stage and defending your record.
What is Chris Christie running on? Does anybody know? Let me know in the chat. What is Chris Christie's platform besides vote for me, I'm not Donald Trump? You see the problem with always focusing on Donald Trump instead of focusing on their own platforms? I can't even tell you. I don't know what he's running on. Very strange.
Ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
Some of the sharpest attacks we've heard against the former president so far. Now, toward the end of the debate, Ron DeSantis did hit Trump on his abortion stance. But for the Florida governor, whose campaign is trying to frame this race as a two-man contest, this debate may not have been what he'd hoped for. DeSantis didn't speak for the first 15 minutes of tonight's debate and set up Tim Scott for one of his strongest moments of the night.
Florida's new Black History curriculum says, quote, slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. You have said slaves develop skills in spite of slavery, not because of it. But many are still hurt. For descendants of slaves, this is personal. What is your message to them?
So first of all, that's a hoax that was perpetrated by Kamala Harris. We are not going to be doing that.
There is not a redeeming quality in slavery. He and Kamala should have just taken the one sentence out. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country.
So here is Tim Scott here. Like this guy really is Uncle Tom. Tim Scott says Black families survived slavery. Really? How many? Which ones? Is Tim Scott just going to forget about all the ones that died? You see what Tim Scott's job is. Tim Scott, by the way, I used to live in South Carolina, so I'm very familiar with who he is and who Nikki Haley is. And I lived in South Carolina when Nikki Haley was still governor. So it's just, this guy is there to basically give more water to the Republican Party, right? And it's a Black guy doing it. Tim Scott talks out both sides of his mouth. One minute he says he's experienced discrimination and racism. And then the next minute you'll hear him say, we don't need to focus on race. America's not a racist country. Which is it, Tim? Did you experience those things or not?
Hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society, where they decided to put money where they decided to take the black father out of the household to get a check in the mail. And you can now measure that in unemployment, in crime, in devastation.
Now, let me push back on Tim here, because let me tell you how he messed up in this statement. Of course, a lot of people in this room probably didn't even catch this part. When he talks about taking the black father out of the home, he's talking about how that led to crime. Yes, crime did increase after they took the fathers out of the home. But what Tim leaves out, now he said black families survived slavery, but Tim doesn't tell you they started taking the black father away from the family during slavery. It didn't just start under Joe Biden's crime bill, or bills, I should add. So he doesn't make that connection. And you can't tell, Tim Scott can't sit here and tell me he don't know about that. He's too smart to not know about that particular history. And he's from South Carolina. So I know he knows better. But Tim Scott, again, is playing partisan politics because he's in the Republican Party. He's going to try to spin it and say, well, let me see what the Democrats did it wrong to the black family and use that as my argument. And he's going to leave out what happened before the crime bills. That piece is very important.
If you want to restore hope, you've got to restore the family, restore capitalism, and put Americans back at work together as one.
Notice what he just said. If you want to restore hope, you have to restore capitalism. You see, this is what this is all about for people like Tim. Let's strengthen capitalism. How has the capitalist system been working out for people who are poor in this country? We showed you the graphs. Since 1970, the people at the bottom have stayed at the bottom while other people have continued to climb up. This is what it's all about. Let's protect capitalism.
The American family, our nation continues to go in the right direction. It's why I can say I have been discriminated against, but America is not a racist country. Never, ever doubt who we are. We are the greatest country on God's green earth. And frankly, the city on the hill needs a brand.
I told you he talks out both sides of his mouth.
New leader, and I'm asking for your vote.
Now,
okay, and I believe that was the last one I wanted to show there. Oh no, there's this part here with Vivek. This part is interesting as well. Oh boy.
You joined TikTok after dinner with boxer and influencer Jake Paul. Should the commander-in-chief be so easily persuaded by an influencer?
So the answer is I have a radical idea for the Republican Party. We need to win elections. And part of how we win elections is reaching the next generation of young Americans.
This is infuriating because TikTok is one of the most dangerous social media apps that we could have. And what you've got, I honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say because I can't believe that here you've got a TikTok situation. What they're doing is these 150 million people are on TikTok. That means they can get your contacts, they can get your financial information, they can get your emails, they can get text messages.
You know what's interesting about this? And I'm not going to play the video because I don't want to show someone's child on here. But what's interesting about this argument that Nikki Haley is making, it was already released on Twitter, of course, of all places, that her daughter is on TikTok. So if she feels it's this dangerous, why would you permit your child to be on it? So she's already been called out for that. To Vivek's point, one thing I do agree with him here is where he says that you have to be able to reach those younger people. And where are the younger people? So again, this is about going to the people and not expecting the people to come to you. Sometimes you have to meet people where they are. And someone who is a good politician, they will understand that. If they're really trying to reach the masses and you break up these groups into different demographics and you see how they communicate with one another, then you have to adjust your style of communication depending on the demographic you're reaching out to. So for example, if you're trying to reach out to younger people, you may have to reach out to them on TikTok, on social media. That is where they are. So it is very important. This is something I will say, as much as he's an ass, this as much as I will say, this is something that Bill Clinton really understood and did well. He did reach voters where they were. If he was trying to talk to working class people or poor people, he would go into those businesses where he knew that they would be. He would go into the diners and sit down and talk with people. He would go into the McDonald's and sit down and talk with people. So you have to reach people where they are. And Nikki Haley's like, no, TikTok is so dangerous because China.
This is important. This is very important for our party.
Exactly what they're doing.
This is very important for our party, and I'm going to say
you've gone and you've helped China make medicines in China, not America. You're now wanting kids to go and get on the social media that's dangerous for all of us. You went and you were in business with the Chinese that gave Hunter Biden $5 million. We can't trust you. We can't trust you. We can't have TikTok in our kids' lives.
You can't trust either one of them. We've talked about Vivek's business dealings. I just told you about Nikki Haley. I told you about my experience with her being a governor of South Carolina. They're both hypocrites here. They're both hypocrites. Now, Brianna Joy Gray pointed this out. I thought this was interesting. She said, it's so weird how they're like, China is bad. I'm scared they're investing in our hemisphere, but also unions are bad. Let the auto workers do a free market and send jobs to China. And also, immigrants are coming from South and Central America fleeing poverty. But also, I'm mad China is investing there. And also, let's keep sanctioning Venezuela. I mean, this is what they're all saying. Like, they're just talking in circles here. Now, there was something that Ron DeSantis said last night, and I had to tweet this out. I had to call him out. Let me show you what he said, and then I'll show you how I debunked what he said. Listen to this clip here where he starts to complain about big pharma, insurance companies, and he starts to brag about Florida. Listen to this.
Well, I think this is a symptom of our overall economic decline. Everything has gotten more expensive. You see insurance rates are going through the roof. People that are going to get groceries. I spoke with a woman in Iowa, and she said, for the first time in my life, I'm having to take things out of my grocery cart when I get to the checkout line because the total goes up so quickly. So this is very real, and people are hurting out there. So we've got to address the underlying problem with Bidenomics, the overspending, taking all Biden's rules and regulations. I'm going to throw them in the trash can on day one. You're not going to have to worry about that. We're going to open up all of our energy. We will be energy dominant in this country. That will lower your gas prices. And what we need to do with healthcare is recognize our healthcare is putting patients at the back of the bus. We have big pharma, big insurance, and big government, and we need to tackle that and have more power for the people and the doctor-patient relationship.
So Ron DeSantis just admitted there that big pharma is an issue. Obviously, Bidenomics is an issue. We talked about the grocery store prices on the show multiple times. But the big pharma thing, that one that one really stuck with me. So if Ron DeSantis realizes that big pharma is a problem, is Ron DeSantis going to approve universal health care for everybody to weed out big pharma? No. Ron DeSantis is in bed with insurance companies right now as we speak. So what is he talking about? Now, he goes on to say how Florida is doing so well. Listen to this.
Why is your record in Florida on insurance worse than the national average?
Our state's a dynamic state. We've got a lot of folks that come. Of course, we've had a population boom. We also don't have a lot of welfare benefits in Florida. We're basically saying this is a field of dreams. You can do well in the state, but we're not going to be like California and have massive numbers of people on government programs without work requirements. We believe you work and you got to do that. And so that goes for all the welfare benefits. And you know what that's done?
Pause real quick. He says that we've had a boom in Florida, right? So he said Florida had a boom. Yeah. A lot of people do move to Florida. A lot of people have also moved to Texas and other states as well. But one thing I noticed that's interesting that he left out, let's all remember, it was only a year or two ago that Ron DeSantis made that public announcement and he invited other police officers to move to Florida and become a police officer there. let's all remember that Ron DeSantis did invite people to come to Florida. So don't forget that. This part is very telling as well.
Stewart, our unemployment rate is the lowest amongst any big state. We have the highest GDP growth amongst any big state. And even CNBC, no fan of mine, ranked Florida the #1 economy in America.
So let me show you the lie, because, you know, we've been talking about the cost of living report on this show that comes out every year. So we've talked about the 2023 one. I said, according to the cost of living report, Florida is one of the most expensive states to live in. He complains about big pharma and insurance, but he's in bed with insurance companies. And so I made sure to put the screenshot right there. Florida is 11th. Ron is lying as usual. See this, guys? Don't forget. Remember, we talked about the cost of living report. Florida ranks 11th in the highest housing wage in this country. You have to make $30.59 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental home. If you make minimum wage in Florida, you have to work 111 hours a week to afford that. See, Ron DeSantis is leaving this out. People need to see this. Florida is not as affordable as it used to be. Things have changed. Now, I want to go to this clip here from Tim Scott, because we got some things to say.
There is not a redeeming quality in slavery. He and Kamala should have just taken the one sentence out.
This is the more extended version because the other one left things out.
America has suffered because of slavery, but we've overcome that. We are the greatest nation on earth because we faced our demons in the mirror and made a decision. So,
no, we didn't. That part was left out of the other interview. No, we did not. Germany did. When it comes to the Holocaust, Germany did. They did face their demons in the mirror, and they said, you know what? This was a cruel act. In reference to the Holocaust, this was a cruel act that was done to Jewish people. And Germany not only acknowledged that, but they also said, we are going to pay reparations towards Jewish families because of what happened. They did that. We have not done that in this country yet. We have schools in this country right now teaching kids that the Civil War had nothing to do with slavery. Always interesting to me when people say, oh no, the Civil War was about states' rights. Yes, what was one of the rights they were fighting for? We have that right now. We have not faced our demons when it comes to that history in this country, and not just when it comes to slavery, but when it comes to the indigenous people in this country as well. We have not faced it. We have not fully acknowledged it, and we damn sure have not paid any type of reparations towards those groups. That is incorrect. Let's continue.
Often we think that all the issues, you talked about crime and education and healthcare, we always think that those issues go back to slavery. Here's the challenge though. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was
literacy tests? As someone who was a former educator, literacy tests are still a problem. Still a problem. If you look at the grade level that kids can read on in this particular country, the number of people reading on like a 5th grade reading level in this country, and most of the time, it's Black kids. That's still a problem. You look at some of the states in this country that have high illiteracy rates. South Carolina, Mississippi, high illiteracy rates. We still have not fixed that problem. And Tim, from being from South Carolina, he knows better.
hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society, where they decided to put money where they decided to take the black father out of the household to get a check in the mail. And you can now measure that in unemployment, in crime, in devastation.
And like I said before, the black father was originally taken out of the home during slavery.
You want to restore hope, you've got to restore the family, restore capitalism, and put Americans back at work together as one American family. Our nation continues to go in the right direction. It's why I can say I have been discriminated against, but America.
Our nation continues to go in the right direction. Do we? Because over the past couple of years, it seems like we've been going backwards as a nation, not forwards. Especially when it comes to social issues. Are we really moving forward?
Is not a racist country. Never, ever doubt who we are. We are the greatest country on God's green earth. And frankly, the city on the hill needs a brand new leader. And I'm asking for your vote.
He just reminds me of Uncle Ruckus or something like this. You know, Tim. Now, we brought up the part about, I showed the TikTok one already, but I want to show you what Link Lawrence said about this, who is Gen Z. I find it funny. Nikki Haley says 150 million people are on TikTok, then denigrates the platform and everyone on it. Several campaigns have told me point blank they have no Gen Z outreach strategy and will never join TikTok. Their polling reflects that. So Link is someone who is actually very popular on TikTok and does very well on that platform. He's also Gen Z, so he knows exactly what his generation is looking for. He's been on the show to talk about this before as well. So the thing is, I think it is a mistake to avoid certain platforms if you're really seriously trying to win. But I don't think these people are seriously trying to win. I think this is actually just a campaign for vice president. Now, of course, Donald Trump was not at that debate, but I want to show you where Donald Trump was. He was in Michigan at one of the auto facilities. This was the crowd waiting to read. This is the crowd waiting to greet Donald Trump. And you tell me if Trump supporters really care if he was at that debate or not. Look at this. So, do you think those people there cared about the fact that he wasn't on the debate stage? No, they don't. By the way, the auto company that he went to visit, that he went to speak at yesterday, that is not a union business, just FYI. That is a non-union auto company. So I just want to make that very clear. Now, who won the debate? Check this out. According to political polls, reflecting on the debate overall, who do you think was the real winner? 27% said Donald Trump. You see why I said talking about him and focusing on him at the debate actually is not a good idea for their campaigns, because then you're putting the attention on him. You're just helping Donald Trump. Vivek came in second place here in this poll, 26%. Ron DeSantis, 17%. Pence, 6%. Pence. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about one of the things he said last night. Pence, 6%. Nikki Haley, 6%. Scott, 5%. Christie, 3%. Burgum, 3%. And Hutchinson, 2%. I keep forgetting about Hutchinson, 2%. But it's very telling here. Like, obviously, they think Vivek did the best out of the ones who were actually on the stage. But it's just hilarious that people said Donald Trump and he wasn't even there. But there you go.